Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Monday. It's the 20th day of October 2025. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. I hope you and your family are safe and healthy, and that the needs of you and your family in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as health are being met today. Blessings upon those that work in the area of health and those that are first responders that work together, risking their lives oftentimes to save lives. Those that pick up garbage, keep our places clean, and those that make deliveries for our convenience. Double blessings on the men and women that are here trying to help rescue, deliver, and recover teenagers and children that are victims of child molestation and pedophilia. People that are victims of pornography and child pornography, prostitution, child prostitution, human trafficking, and sex slavery. Double curses on the perpetrators, the profiteers, and the perverts that create the demands that cause these evil and heinous industries to exist. Finally, double blessings on the homeless. More than 700,000 men, women, children, families, senior citizens, military veterans, homeless in the United States of America, and millions around the world in similar or worse conditions. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. Every once in a while, I'm usually pretty correct, as many of you could testify. I'm usually pretty correct in terms of talent, in terms of players that are going to make it and players that are not. But when I'm wrong, I will admit freely, when I am wrong, it's usually I am wrong with respect to a white player. And the reason I am is because the reason that happens and that I generally doubt the talent of the white player is because I come up from a time when black players were not allowed to be but so many on a team. The first team to have an all-black team was the New York Knicks. And it was a problem in society at the time in the 70s when the Knicks came out in the early 70s with an all-black team. So in these scenarios, you go back to Jack Johnson, really. Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion. When he was the heavyweight champion, what society was trying to do to tear him down is come up with a white champion to show that white fighters were better than black fighters. And so they kept coming up with what the term was, a white hope. And that term and that scenario pervaded all three major sports in terms of basketball, baseball, and football. And so now, though, it's a little different in the sense that it's about money. So when Yao Ming came to the NBA, his rookie year, he got more votes for the All-Star than any other player. More votes than anybody, more than LeBron or Jordan or anybody. Reason, all of the votes coming from China. So it was a smart move by the NBA to bring in a Yao Ming. Yes, now he became a Hall of Famer. And I'm not saying Yao Ming wasn't a great player. I am saying that him coming from China had a lot to do with it, because that's money that the NBA was making coming from China. And it's the same with any group of people. NBA is a business. And so they want to make money. If they can get a great white player, like Larry Bird was a gold mine for the NBA, and they made it into a Bird versus Magic thing, starting actually in their college, but then they translated to the pros. Both of them signed with Converse, and it was about the business. It was about the business of the NBA. So, and it still carries. So every time there's a hopeful white player, the NBA will push that player, okay? Push that player, and if they're good, then it helps. It's even better. Denny Avdija. I was not into Denny Avdija. A lot of people wanted the Knicks to draft him that year in the lottery, when the Knicks were in the lottery, and I wasn't into him. I didn't think he was going to make it in the NBA. And he was playing in the Israel League. So I understood the business and politics of it. But as it turns out, I was wrong. Denny Avdija can ball. He belongs in the NBA. See? So when I make a mistake, it's usually with a white player. It usually is. And so I will freely admit when I'm wrong. Like I said, Denny Avdija is a baller. Another guy, Franz Wagner. I didn't think Franz Wagner was worth the 8th pick. As it turns out, Franz Wagner's that dude. He's the deal. So, yes, he was worth the 8th pick. But they have to show me. It's like I'm a Missouri person at that point. You got to show me that you're good. You got to prove that you're good and that it's not just hype to get more audience from the white crowd. Well, here we have now Tyler Kolek coming out of Marquette. To me, all of the earmarks was of a guy that's not going to make it. Okay, he came out of Marquette, but he had already played D1 at another school in Virginia, and so George Mason. Oh God, I forgot the name of the school. One of y'all gonna tell me. But anyway, he come out of that school, went to Marquette. He played 4 years. He was MVP in the Big East tournament. But he's older. You know, he comes out as an older guy, and he was 23, I think, when he was drafted. And then he dropped. He was projected to go in the first round. Actually, they had Phoenix taking him in the first round, but he dropped into the second round. And of course, that drop to the down represents value. Guy that's supposed to be in the first round dropped to the second round. He snatched him up. Slow, no defense, tremendous vision, had the prospect of being a good shooter, a very good shooter. I didn't think he was going to make it. I didn't think he was going to. And people were already, what burned me up is people were already saying that he's going to replace Deuce. Deuce is the odd man out, which is ridiculous. I still can't believe people were actually saying that. And then trying to compare him to John Stockton, Hall of Fame, multiple all defense, legit top 50 in the league. And no, see, you got to understand, when you do stuff like that, you are disrespecting the other player. You're disrespecting Deuce. You're disrespecting John Stockton when you do stuff like that. This dude was never no John Stockton. His ceiling is T.J. McConnell. And that's if he gets some defense. And I think, I'm looking at him now. This is what caused me to be a Kolek convert. Not that he's showing himself to be an all-star. And I guess it goes with the territory in Knicks Nation. Some of y'all just get carried away. Carried away. Somebody said, Diawara is now in the rotation. No, Diawara is not in the rotation. He played very well Friday. 4 rotation players were missing. When they come back, he gets to the back of the line. I say he will fight his way and get some minutes. I've been saying that since the summer, but he's not going to be a rotation player. Then somebody said Tyler Kolek is the only playmaker in the second unit. That's a falsehood, because Tyler Kolek is not in the second unit. See, so these type of overhype comes with being in Knicks Nation. But what caused me to say, okay, I'm on board with Kolek now. I wasn't before, but I'm on board now. A couple things. What I admire in a player is toughness. I love players that are tough. There's been a lot of guys like that in the league. There was a guy named Butch Lee, played in the 70s. There was a guy named Norm Van Leer, played for Chicago in the 70s. Those tough dudes, man. Tough dudes. Kevin Porter, not the Kevin Porter you see now. I'm talking about there was a real gangster, Kevin Porter, on Detroit back in the 70s. I always admire toughness. I admire tenacity. I admire survivors. That is guys that beat the odds. See, to be in the NBA, you got to be good. You got to be very good at playing basketball. When you're looking at the players in the NBA, comparing them to each other, you can rank them in terms of how good one is versus another. But if you take any NBA player and you play them against any person in Division I that's not an NBA player or any other player, they're going to destroy whoever they play, because that's the difference between the NBA and everybody else. Okay, there's just a vast difference. NBA is the top 400 best players in the world. Okay, so you got to be good to be in the league. So Tyler Kolek, obviously, his calling card was his vision, his passing ability, his ball handling ability, and then of course the possibility of a shot, which I thought still was going to get there. I thought the shot would get there. I still do, but that's what got him noticed in the league. But I thought for sure this summer he was gonna be traded or cut. I thought for sure. because they had Cameron Payne, they still had DeLon Wright out there, Landry Shamet, and then they went and signed Jordan Clarkson. And then Deuce wasn't going nowhere. I didn't care what nobody said. I knew Deuce was going to be a fixture, as he is, in the rotation. So I said, well, I don't know where Kolek's going to be. And I thought in those scenarios, it was similar to me to the Obi situation, Obi and IQ. And many of y'all still don't get it. Obi was drafted to be the starter at the 4 spot when he was drafted. That was the first year. Leon Rose took over that spring in March as the president of basketball operations. And it was Leon Rose that drafted him. And the reason is, now we look back and we're looking at Juju, and Juju's been 2-time All-NBA, All-Star, really All-Star, great player, right? But Juju's first year in New York was a disaster. He was a turnover waiting to happen, like he had been in LA, like he had been in New Orleans. Tremendous offensive talent, didn't give a crap on defense. And that's what his first year in New York was like. So they were going to trade him, okay? And Ian Begley, I remember, that was the signal I got. When Ian Begley did an article, said, in the draft, the Knicks are looking for a power forward. That's writing on the wall saying, okay, we're done with Juju. And we getting ready to bring in somebody that we could develop and take over that spot. That was Obi Toppin. But that was all prior to the hiring of one Tom Thibodeau, who favors veterans. Tibbs worked one-on-one closely with Juju that same summer. Tibbs came after the draft. They hadn't had a coach until after the draft. Tibbs was hired in July of that year. They drafted Obi earlier in June. Okay, so now they got Obi on their radar. They want him. I don't know if that was the COVID year either, because he might have drafted Obi in the fall. But they had the Don already decided, though. My point is, he decided on Obi already. So, and Obi was like 3rd or 4th on my depth chart in terms of draft that year. I liked Halliburton. I liked Devin Vassell was my number 1. I liked Halliburton. I actually liked Okoro more than Obi because of his defense. But Obi was like the 4th guy on my draft board. It was Vassell, it was Halliburton, then it was Okoro, and then it was Obi. But he drafted Obi from New York and all that. So anyway, Obi was supposed to be the starting power forward. But then Tibbs decided, no, Juju was the starting power forward. And Juju went and had, in the first year under Tom Thibodeau, an All-NBA, All-Star season. Okay? And there was no looking back from there. So now Obi, having the expectation of being the chance to be a starter, now getting under Tom Thibodeau, first of all, don't like rookies. And then second of all, he loved Juju. He was never going to be a starter. So now his 3 years goes by. He's in the 4th year, which is time for the extension. And it wasn't going to make no sense. He wanted a chance to start. So he goes to Indiana. The Knicks do him a favor and send him to Indiana, where he would have been the starting power forward. But that same year, Indiana got Pascal Siakam, an All-NBA power forward. So that messed Obi up again. But he did still get 4 years, $60 million from Indiana. So even though he never got the chance, he starts some games, but he's not a regular starter. He's a regular rotation piece, though, in Indiana. So that's what happened. And so the Don trades Obi to do Obi a favor. Same with IQ, a starter that's coming off the bench. His first 2 years was a bench piece, but Tibbs loved him. Like Tibbs didn't treat him like he treated any other rookie. He was like Tibbs' grandson, and I used to call him Tibbs' grandson. Then by the time now IQ's in his 3rd season and he's getting ready for an extension, he was a starter. And there were several teams, and I had already named Washington and Toronto as 2 teams he could actually start for. And they ended up trading him to Toronto. And they got, of course, you get OG Anunoby and Precious Achua back, but you got your money's worth. But then IQ goes and signs $175 million with Toronto because they're giving him the ball to be the starting point guard. Okay, so that's the situation I saw on a lighter sense with Kolek. No defense, plenty of people in front of him, okay, that can play his position. Brunson, Deuce, Clarkson. Plus, I didn't even know at the time, none of us knew were they going to sign DeLon Wright, were they going to sign Cameron Payne again. All of that in front of him, like last year. So I was like, well, in order to give I thought he could develop into a better NBA player if given minutes, but I didn't see how he's going to get him here. So with that, I thought, okay, they're going to trade him. And then, he'll get playing time in Charlotte or in Brooklyn. That's what I was thinking. I'm just explaining to you my thought process here so that I don't want nobody coming out with no stupidness, Oh, you was wrong, or some of y'all just live for that. You sick. Okay, anyway. But anyway. Then they kept him, and I realized they were going to keep him 2 weeks ago because the numbers didn't work to trade him. The $2.8 million that Daddy, that's the number they needed to move off of. And the reason is the plan was to keep 2 of Matthews, Bogdan, and Shamet. I've been telling y'all Shamet wasn't going nowhere. They were going to keep Shamet, okay? So now, if they were going to sign Brogdon, which Shams reported, they were going to sign him. They would have had to trade Daddy to sign Brogdon. Brogdon did Daddy a solid by retiring. Okay, he did Daddy a solid. Because now when he retires, now the question is, okay, we're signing Shamet and we don't need to trade nobody to sign Shamet. But if we want to keep Matthews, we got to trade Daddy. And they decided to keep Daddy. And you know why? Because they got enough shooters. See, unlike in Knicks Nation where they think an all-star should be at every position from 1 through 15. It don't work like that. The Knicks got plenty of shooters. In the starting unit, even with Mitch Rob, there's 4 shooters with him. In the second unit, there's at least 2 or 3 shooters there. Okay, so you got shooters. They didn't need another shooter. That's why they can keep Daddy and develop him. He's not ready for prime time, as he has shown in the preseason. He's not ready. He's got talent, and I feel like he's going to develop, but he's not going to develop ahead of the schedule you would expect for a typical guy coming in the league at 18 or 19, and it's now 20. He's going to need time, and he's going to develop. He's going to be like James Najee. James Najee is going to be a really good 5. He's still got to develop, though. He's 20 years old. He needs time. And so you don't, it's like put him in the oven, let him cook, come back in 2 years and see what you got. You're going to have a player. And I think that's the same with Daddy. So they kept him. He'll be the last man on the bench. He won't get no time. He might get a couple minutes in garbage time, but that's it. But with respect to Kolek survived. That's number 1, caught my eye. When I realized they were going to trade Daddy to keep Brogdon, Kolek survived. Okay? Then he plays good. He plays his best game in a Knicks uniform in a loss to Washington. But he was solid on both sides of the ball. And I noticed in that game, he was plus 10, number 1. That's big because he's never plus. But he's plus 10. And Brown played him with 4 defenders. And of course, in that scenario, that's the old Allen Iverson, Larry Brown. Allen Iverson ain't playing no defense. He led the league in steals because he was cheating, but he had 4 All-NBA level defenders on the floor with him at all times. And you put him out there with that means you got the defense covered and nobody could guard AI. So AI was going off. They went to the finals. Of course, they lose to a better team in Kobe and Shaq's Lakers, but that's how they got to the finals. Use that same formula with Kolek. Kolek ain't AI, but the point is, you put him out there with 4 defenders. That gives him some cover. And then you let him handle the basketball, and you're going to be good. And that's what he did against Washington on Monday, and he did it again against Charlotte on Friday. See? So this is the pecking order. It's Brunson, Deuce, Kolek, and you don't need to go get another guard. You're good. Now, and that's why I said this boy survived, and now they figured out a way to help him thrive. See? So this is the thing. I still feel like 2 things you could expect, even though he's older. I think Kolek's going to be 25 in March. So he's an older dude. But that don't mean he won't make it. It's definitely a negative, but I think he can overcome it. And this is why I think so. I believe Kolek is going to be a 40% plus shooter from 3 for the Knicks this year. He's not going to be a rotation player, so don't get it twisted. But he will play in the rotation when Brunson is hurt. Deuce will start, and Kolek will move up into the rotation at that point as a point guard. But as a shooter, I feel like he's going to get used to the NBA speed. And the reason why, he does have the talent, but the reason why I'm very sold on it is because he works his ass off. He works very hard. And that's another, I like a hard worker. And Brunson and Brown and then Deuce, everybody, and then they interviewed Kolek himself. He stayed in New York over the summer, which he needed to do. He works his tail off. He's going to get that jump shot down. He got the talent to shoot it. He just needs reps, and he's going to get some this year. So you're going to get a 40% plus shooter from three. That's going to make him valuable. If you put him out there like they kept doing, he was out there one time with Deuce, Diawara, Jameson, and McCott Bridges, and they was rolling. Okay, they was rolling, and he even got a steal in that scenario, playing the passing lane. That's what happens when you put a guy out there with four solid defenders. You can't play him with Cat. And I wouldn't even try to really play him much with Brunson because you got two weak defenders, okay? And I'm saying Cat's a weak defender. We're hoping he improves. But if you put Kolek out there with him, they're going to score points, but they're going to give up points, okay? Now, you really want lineups in there that'll score and stop the other team. That's an effective lineup. The lineup Kolek was out there with on Friday could score and defend. And that was the key, okay? So for those reasons, his hard work, the fact that he survived and he's still here and he's trying his best to get better. And again, I mentioned the shooting, but also I feel like he's going to become better defensively. He is going to be 25, but I still feel like his body could fill in a little bit more. He's at an age where the weightlifting work and strength training will really help him. He's not like, I feel like people put too much emphasis on strength training when guys are 18 and 19 because the bodies aren't fully grown yet. I think Kolek is in his fully grown state. And so really the weight training will help him. And, that was very similar to TJ McConnell. The differences between McConnell and Kolek is in two areas. Kolek is a better passer. He's naturally gifted with seeing the floor. He's got better court vision than McConnell, okay? But McConnell knows how to get to his spots. Almost nobody could stop him from getting to his spots. Kolek ain't there yet. That's something that comes with experience. He's not able to get to his spots when he wants to. McConnell, there's nobody. He likes them spots around the circle. From the left, right, and the center part of the court, he gets in that paint and does that, he's going to hit the shot. So you got to stop him from getting there. But he's hard. It's hard. And he's a really valuable piece for Indiana coming off the bench like he was in Philly. And I feel like once Kolek learns that, and I feel like he will, he's going to work really hard at it for sure. He learns to get to his spots on the floor. Right now, nobody could tell me what Kolek's favorite spots are on the floor because he doesn't get to any favorite spots. He just gets to a spot that's open and tries to get his shot. Okay, but that's what young players do. Very few, like Jason Tatum, came into the NBA knowing how to get to his spots. Okay, some players got it like that. Kolek does. Not Kolek. McConnell does. But I feel like Kolek, with the talents he already has, he's going to learn to get to his spots. He's going to learn to shoot at the NBA level this year. But getting to his spots, that's going to take a little bit. But he's going to get there. And that'll be good. Now, he's not going to be a top-flight NBA point guard. But like McConnell, I feel like he can be a very valuable rotation piece off the bench. Okay, eventually. This year, he's the third-string point guard. And for him, to me, that's big time. Because he was on his way out. So he's now, from being on his way out, he's the third-string point guard for the New York Knicks. In a year, they're trying to win a chip. I'm still concerned when he plays against top-flight teams with really tough bench defender like Indiana. Because you play Indiana, you got to deal with, they got some tough guards. McConnell, Nembhard, they got some tough guards. And of course, there's Neesmith. You're going to play some tough guys. And so you got to be ready against them. And you got to be able to get in there and hold your own. I'm a little concerned for Kolek in those scenarios. But if he's going to be a player in the league, he's got to deal with that. And I feel like Brown is the type of coach that will ease him into that. So, Kolek has won me over. Like I said, I'm not looking at an all-star, but I'm looking at an NBA player that could have a long career. And so, and playing for the New York Knicks, and the top of all of it, can help us win. Y'all enjoy your Monday. Shalom.